going to have to work towards a renewed commitment to pluralist principles, because the alternative is what we've seen here in the United States and in many democracies around the globe. Not just more gridlock, not just public cynicism, but an increasing willingness on the part of politicians and their followers to violate democratic norms, to do anything they can to get their way, to use the power of the state to target critics and journalists and political rivals, and to even resort to violence in order to gain and hold on to power.
With the support of the Obama Foundation's My Brother's Keeper Alliance,
pluralism is not about holding hands and singing Kumbaya. It is not about abandoning your convictions and folding when things get tough. It is about recognizing that in a democracy, power comes from forging alliances and building coalitions and making room in those coalitions, not only for the woke, but also for the waking.
Aspirations of others for their sake.
So in a democracy, it's important to argue strongly for the issues we care about and draw lines that we're not willing to cross. But purity tests are not a recipe for long-term success. Basic question remains. Words alone do not build trust. Words alone do not rid people of prejudice. What does build trust, because it builds relationships, is people banding together to get stuff done.
Conversation, should we be pluralistic? Should we reach across the aisle? But I'm really curious about how close is...
We have to be open to framing our issues, our causes, what we believe in terms of we, and not just us and them. We have to try to frame issues in ways that at least consider the possibility of a win-win situation rather than a zero-sum situation. That's what Mandela understood when he befriends the man guarding his prison cell. That's what King understood in framing the issue not simply as an African-American issue, but as an American issue. Hey, who are we? What are we trying to be? Understanding that the oppressor is as yoked and confined and limited by these systems as the oppressed. But no matter what country we're talking about, media companies have figured out that there's a profit in playing to the extremes. Since that's what gets attention, politicians and party leaders and interest groups are incentivized to take a maximalist position on almost every issue. Every election becomes an act of mortal combat in which political opponents are enemies to be vanquished. And compromise is viewed as betrayal. And total victory is the only acceptable outcome.
That we didn't have to choose one community over the other.
There are going to be times, potentially, when one side tries to stack the deck and lock in a permanent grip on power, either by actively suppressing votes or politicizing the armed forces or using the judiciary, the criminal justice system to go after opponents. And in those circumstances, pluralism does not call for us to just stand back and say, well, I'm not sure. That's okay. In those circumstances, a line has been crossed, and we have to stand firm and speak out and organize and mobilize as forcefully as we can. But even in those circumstances, it's important to look for allies in unlikely places, or religious, as they are in India and Northern Ireland, or ethnic, as they are. You see, it's easy to give democracy lip service when it delivers the outcomes we want. It's when we don't get what we want that our commitment to democracy is tested. And at this moment in history, when core democratic principles seem to be continuously under attack, and when too many people around the world have become cynical and disengaged, now is precisely the time to ask ourselves tough questions about how we can build our democracies and make them work.
Private school and our black public school to do a haiku.
Talk of bridging our differences when the country and the world seemed so bitterly divided felt like an academic exercise. It felt far-fetched, even naive, especially since, as far as they were concerned, the election proved that democracy is pretty far down on people's priority list.